Blunt Cuts is a podcast fueled by creativity, curiosity, and empowerment.
We cut through the daily mess of life. This is unfiltered honesty.
Park your passive at the door. This is Blunt Cuts. Welcome to Blunt Cuts. I'm CJ, and please welcome to the studio Larissa Loden, designer, creator, connector, and all-around amazing human. Welcome, Larissa.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so awesome to have you today, and we are going to get real and talk all about getting shit done. And we all have so much up against us. Task list seems to be overwhelming, all of these places to try to organize your life. But one of the key things for me is that blunt women really get shit done.
Yeah, blunt women for sure get shit done because we have a lot of shit to get done. So unless you're blunt about it, you're not going to get it done.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. So I'd love to hear kind of a story or a journey with you and your business that you've had to kind of be more direct to make sure that things are happening.
Yeah, it's really honestly happened in the past couple of years as my company has continued to grow, and I now employ 12 people, which is literally, it's insane. And to manage that amount of people, you have to be blunt sometimes and just be like, this is where, the analogy is like, this is where our bus is going, and like, you can get off my bus if you need to, but my bus is going this way. And because of that, I've also realized when I don't know things, like I need to ask for help for them. Like recently we did the Eurogem Museum. And I remember a point where I was like talking with Girl Friday and they're like, what's your refresh rate? And I was like, I'm gonna like try it. I was like, I've kind of learned to not fake it till you make it anymore. I was like,
You mean I shower occasionally?
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean by that? I actually was like, yes, I'm throwing this museum, but I legit don't know. What is a refresh rate? And they're like, oh, if like an installation, like a part of it comes undone, like how fast do we have to come back to fix it? And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, got it. I was like, I don't know. You tell me, what is the standard refresh rate? And they're like, some places are 24 to 48 hours. So I was like, that is our refresh rate then.
Great.
So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Let's do that. I've never heard of that either. So you are not alone. But then again, I do not make art installations on the daily. So
I didn't either until a couple, months ago. So yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right. And, I think there's something about being a blunt woman, but knowing when, like coming from a respectful angle and knowing when maybe your voice doesn't need to be the strongest and somebody else has the right solution to the problem, right?
No, and I think it's like one of those things too. It's like when you're managing people and, it's something that grows is like knowing that you don't know and having, knowing to ask, somebody else like, hey, I don't know this.
That is a big part about being direct because you're parking your self aside. Like, yes, you are this businesswoman. These other people are coming to kind of help serve you and your vision, but you have to sometimes be direct and be like, I don't know what that means, or educate me, tell me what you know. That is a part about being direct.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not always being right.
No, it's 100% not about being right. I think, honestly, it's like, I think the biggest thing is admitting when you're like, I'm not right or I need help and I need to go then find that help. Because otherwise, like, that's why it's like, that analogy, fake it till you make it. I'm like, honestly, like as I've gotten older, I'm like that. I don't believe in that. Like, it's not true because honestly, like if I don't know it, I can't fake it. Like like things will fall apart, So yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think that there are those times in which like your early career, sometimes you just got to jump. And you do have to fake it a little bit to just get out there. But then every opportunity you have to learn and ask questions and really drive forward that idea of, okay, I don't know everything, but I know enough to be in this room and feel confident about that. And then learn, be a sponge, absorb as much as possible so that it will come back to you in life. The weirdest things and the weirdest facts of information or parts of business, will circle back. So have listening feelers out there. I mean, I guess that's what I've done throughout my career, and it's really helped me become more direct and more open and confident.
Yeah, and I really think it is. It's like that direct is that confidence of just, really being able to, tell like you are part of that room, you should be part of that room. But then also just being like, hey, or like saying like, can you say that again one more time? Because like legit how you said that, I do not understand at all, like, you know, what you want or need, because I can't deliver unless I know exactly what your expectations are. So
yeah, clarity is key.
Yes, agree completely. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got to managing 12 people. I'm fascinated. So I, as a fellow like entrepreneur, I've never had my businesses be up to that level of 12 people. That's awesome. I mean, in corporate world, sure, I'm managing like 20 people, but like they're managing themselves. There's no real.
No, it really has snowballed a ton in like about the past like 3 years. So about 4 years ago, I was still a teacher half time. I had my business. I had 2 employees at that time. I just was definitely like one of those people that was like, I can do this all, you know. And then it came to a point we went to Las Vegas to do a trade show, and I came back with all of these orders, and some of them from really high profile accounts, and went in literally to the assistant principal of the school, who was a dear friend of mine. And we were just kind of like, she's like, what are you doing, girl? Like, you know, and I was like, I don't know, you know, and she's like,
the comfort of like having stability.
Yeah, it's huge, you know. And so, you know, like healthcare, I mean, all of those things. And so, you know, but then there was this time, I was like, you know what, it's time to take that jump and that risk and that leap of faith in yourself that you can do this, you know. But it honestly, like coming from the education world was huge, because I was teaching middle school art students. And so, I mean, if you can manage a classroom.
I want you as an art teacher.
I was like, but it's like, if I can manage, like, you know, a room full of 30 to 35, like 7th and 8th graders, like, you know, 12 adults usually, like, it's still super difficult, but, you know, it set me up for so much, like, you know, being able to, like, understanding, like, structure is important, and, you know, like, having goals and, you know, how to accomplish them, like, the steps and everything. So, yeah, I mean, but so it was like, there's like, my story is like super long, but it was really like, you know, had been doing trade shows, kind of grew up in a small business, so had that entrepreneur background. But really what happened was, it was like, you know, went to college and did like art fairs in the summer, you know.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yep. And then when you're a teacher,
kind of part of that community.
Yeah. And then when you know, became a teacher, once again, summers you have off, so you're doing those art fairs, and then like stores would start coming up and being like, do you wholesale? And I was like, yes. And then like, do you have a line sheet? I was like, yes, not really. No, but give me
line sheet.
Yeah. Give me 24, 48 hours. I will figure it out, you know. So yeah, maybe in the beginning you fake it till you make it. I mean, I knew what a line sheet was, but just didn't have any reason to. I was like, I don't need one. I don't have this time to make, you know, spend on one. But yeah, and so then in the past couple of years, we've just really like dived hard in growing the business. So we're 60% wholesale, and then 40% retail, and it's like about like 30% like POS, so like in person, then 10% e-commerce. Yeah, and it's really just been growing.
I love hearing that about that you're 10% e-commerce, because I think for a lot of makers, when they put out a website and they get discouraged if they don't get online orders, it is the toughest market and toughest game. And you are up against people that are retargeting social media for millions and millions of dollars for like a $14 tchotchke.
Yeah.
Versus a high quality piece of jewelry. So Larissa does jewelry.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there was like something that somebody said on another podcast, and I was like, that is 100% what it is, especially in the e-commerce game, is that never has it been more easy and accessible to have your stuff out on the internet, but never has the competition been higher. Because it's so easy, that means everybody can do it. So you've got to really stand out and shine, you know.
Find your t-shirts, your Blunt Cuts t-shirts on bluntcutspodcast.com. Because no one's ordered one. Yeah, so I definitely was able to put up our merch, but I don't have a marketing plan for the merch right now, and it's just kind of there as like, hey, brand love.
Yep.
We needed it for some events, so we have it out there, you know. But yes, if I was seriously going after it, that's a whole different strategy. But I do think that, like, just know you got to get out there. You got to be direct with your product if you're starting, you know, a line of something. And e-commerce is easy to set up.
Oh, yeah. E-commerce
is very discouraging and self-deprecating to compare yourself to others.
Yeah. It's super easy to set up. And just know that you have to have such a big hustle around it. Like, honestly, like, we started so much in just like pop-up events, and sometimes I honestly think they're easier. Like, we've had some dire ones and we've had some great ones, but sometimes, the e-commerce game is hard because it's constantly changing too, So,
totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's all a part of getting shit done, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. The list is ever long.
So I wanted to kind of just share a little bit of a story of my journey and how standing up and being blunt through like my early career kind of landed me into more of a leadership role, because I think you may have some great things to kind of piggyback off of. But one scenario, one role that I'll talk through is when I started at a private equity firm. So they funded businesses in a variety of different areas, mostly hospitality. So it was casinos, hotels, different products that kind of had to do with that world. But then they started expanding into education. So kids swimming lessons, Montessori schools, daycares and preschools, like really expanding their portfolio. And then they had a group of restaurants. So these two guys had this fund and this money in which they funded all of these things. They also had a core team of managers that helped on every initiative. I started there as a graphic designer, making menus, making adjustments, doing those sorts of things. It was a very small team. It was a very toxic team, but it was a very small team. And I think that what I learned through that was being open to criticism, because it came in spades and sometimes like a thrown stapler. Like, it was for real one of the worst toxic environments I've ever worked in. However, my biggest growth, because I came in, I was just doing menus. I could have done that, been heads down, left, and said, like, fuck these crazy people, and got on with my day. But I knew that because it was such a small team, if I kept listening, and every time I'd get a criticism, I could pull something of business idea back in, or, hey, these are my passions and drives, and I want to start a business in this area, or etc. So I just became a sponge and really opened my ears. So within a very short time, probably about a year, they decided, hey, we're growing. We're going to need more people. Christina, we want you to manage and facilitate our entire art department. So I went from being one graphic designer to managing partnerships with other contractors, bringing in a couple people. And then I said, hey, it's really like hard for us creatives to work up. They owned a third floor of a small building. Like, it's hard to work up with the suits. Like, it is. It's just like agencies have a thing and a creative vibe for a reason. Like, we just need something else, or it's not going to be purely creative because we're all on pins and needles because of the way your shoes sound on the wood floor. Like, really, truly, like, you're causing me anxiety just walking around. But I was so honest and open about it. They're like, well, we own the second floor too. It was a workout room for like two people and a hair cutting. Like, they had a chair so a barber could come in and cut their hair. It was so man-centric, like like the only woman there. Yeah. So I was like, great. Barber shop and gym goes away. I make our little creative hub. So it was at the time in which I had just had a baby. And so I remember going with Ava in her bucket seat at night with my husband. We ripped out everything in that gym, relaid carpet tiles, put up walls, made desks, like made this space so that I could have this creative hub for this team. Like, the partners gave me 10 grand, which is not a lot to build out a space, and I made it happen. But it was because I was direct in saying, all right, you want this from me, I need this to like make it happen. And then throughout that, I like really built up their trust, and like our creative got better. We really grew. And then I was kind of brought in to help make decisions on investments that would come in the door. Like, they would want me to help with projections on these new companies, or do you think this is a good one? Like, what do you think? Like, they'd actually want my opinion. And I'm like, that's because I'm always there. And I'm not like, I take their criticism. And yes, sometimes I was like, this is completely unwarranted. And eventually I was able to be direct like that and say, hey, this is my space. You do the money space. And then if it starts losing you money, then we'll talk about the creative. But if you just don't like a font or a color because you don't like it, it doesn't matter what you like. Like, the clients or the customers will like this. So that is a development of my directness that had to come out of kind of a necessity of working with people who were like very toxically blunt in a not good way, you know?
No, and I think that's like so true. There's like the toxic blunt, and then there is like the get shit done blunt, like the like direct just because I need to be direct, because else it'll consume you if you're not direct. Like you'll like work inside your head, you know, constantly run around yourself in circles, you know, like you said, like you could either put your head down or you could be direct, you know, and get the shit done. And then you've proven, you know, your worth. And then they're like, oh, okay. Like, you know.
And my directness never came, I can't say never, but never came from this point of like confrontation.
Yeah.
It was more of respect. Always respect. Even if I wasn't being respected, it was always from this place of like, I'm confident in my skills.
Yep.
But I appreciate your opinions and I will absolutely change it. But here's why. And just started offering more of like a why behind. I'm like, if you're not seeing it, you don't know why.
No, I think it's just, yeah, that's totally true. I personally want to be like super clear on like the fact, like I do feel like I'm blunt, but I also like really give a shit behind everything. And that's really like, I think you have to have those good intentions behind everything, or else like, you know, like, yeah, like never, ever, ever have I thrown a stapler. Like if I was that, I would be like,
can you imagine?
I and the thing is like, I think it's crazy is like in my mind, I can imagine. And it's like, and so that's like when I lead my team, I actually really lead it. Like I've had we've all had experiences where we're just like, oh my God, like, you know, if I ever have the chance to lead something, I would not lead it like that. And so it's very much like go in with that intention to work of like, I honor all of my people. Like tomorrow they're all coming to my house for like a lake day, you know, and like, because like they all work so hard for me. And it's one of those things that, you know, yeah, we have everybody on my team has this like girl boss attitude. Like we come in, we work really hard and we get shit done. And we're just excited to see where it goes. So
no, that's incredible. Yeah. And I feel like this environment I was in, they'd be like, all right, let's take a week in Mexico. Like they do those things like pretending that was supportive, but it was more like, I feel bad that I like literally threw things and told you you're fucking stupid this week, so now let's go to Mexico, you know. So it just is like that idea of you have to be authentic and you have to actually genuinely care about people in that manager role. And it taught me like I will not manage that way. I will not be that person. And if anything, it made me try to make them better.
Yeah. No.
And I think like, there were multiple conversations in which I'm like, I am in therapy because of you.
Yeah.
Like, here's the real deal, you know?
No, I mean, it was one of those things. It's actually my cousin. He once told me like, he was like, the most expensive thing for your business is going to be employees. So if you've got good ones, like treat them super well, because it's so expensive to constantly have to hire people and reinvest in them and everything. And it's like, you don't think about like how much it is to train someone up and, you know, and then have somebody that has that knowledge of where you've been, you know, that history, like you just like can't put a price tag on that. So
yeah. And once you're in the trenches with someone who is so inspiring, such as yourself, you don't want to leave. You want to be part of that. You want to grow that. You are part of that business.
Yeah. One story that when I like, we're doing trade shows and I was like, you know, a planner. And then, so like trade shows happen, for people that don't know, like historically in the fashion industry, like twice a year. Like, you know, there's like the January, February season, and then there's July, August, you know. And then they happen at the same time for boutique and gift, just because they hate me as a human. I'm not sure like why they want my stress level to be so high. And historically though, they've been like weekend back to back. So you can totally do them all. Sure. And then I remember I was sitting in New York in February at the trade show booth. I was probably like 4 or 5 months pregnant. Also, somehow still had the flu shot, still got the flu, you know. Fuck. Yeah, you know, and you just willing myself, you know, with as much orange juice as humanly possible. And, you know, kind of like a really tall chair that I was like kind of like leaning on, like I'm standing, you know, but not really.
I'm almost.
Yeah, standing. And like one of our stockists.
I hope I don't vomit on you.
Yeah, I know. And one of our stockists comes up and they're like, can you believe that Magic is the same time as New York Now next year in August? And I was like, wait, what? What do you mean it's the same exact time? How is this humanly possible? Like, they can't be. Like, I've planned out my entire year. Like, you know.
Get out of here with your information.
Yeah. I was like, I've got my sales manager here. We've gone to all the shows. Like, you know, she's been with me. And so I was like, wait, what? And so literally it was like me trying to problem solve. How am I going to do this? You know, because we have to do both of your shows. It's like a huge part of our income. And so, yeah, I literally was flying with my daughter, Evie, at 4 weeks old to New York City to go and do a trade show with very green young staff. I mean, but everybody pulled it off. Like, my staff, like, rose to the occasion. My daughter vomited on me several times, but I think it was just, but we got it done, and yes, I
talk about getting shit done.
Yeah, like literally flew to New York City with a 4-week-old baby, did a trade show. I mean, never saw so little of New York City on any trip, whatever. I was literally going to the Javits and then back to the hotel room. But
that's the part about traveling in this fashion world. It's like, yes, I'm in all of these beautiful places, but when my day is done, I want to have room service delivered to my bed. Yeah. And I want to eat chicken fingers like in a robe on a bed, and that's all I want. And that's like dream life. That is like the best meal in New York after a long fashion day or London or whatnot. Yeah. So it's so funny. Like there's so much opportunity, but I'm by the end of the day, I'm like, that's it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the one thing. It's like when, people that have traveled for their jobs, it's like you do know, like, yes, I'm super fortunate, but one of those things is like, I've been to a ton of places, but I've literally just ate at a bunch of restaurants or seen a bunch of hotels. Like I've gone to Atlanta now like 10, 15 times. I don't think I've done anything like that would be quote unquote touristy there. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. I love Atlanta. I have clients out in Atlanta. So I'm like, if I move anywhere, it would be Atlanta. Shh. Yeah. Don't tell anyone. But I loved it. I love everything about everyone I've met in Atlanta. Yeah. I think it's more the people. There's like a good group of like creative talent. Mm-hmm. That's super diverse in a lot of different spaces and places. And anyway.
No, I think Atlanta's one of those things where you do go to it and you just see like how many just like companies are there just from like literally being in
major big
companies.
And
you're like, oh, Atlanta is kind of a big deal. So
two of my largest accounts, Atlanta. So anyway, well, let's talk about lessons learned and what piece of advice we can kind of leave our listeners with. If you had like one big piece of advice about being blunt and getting shit done, what would it be?
I would say just to be blunt and not, keep it inside. I think that is the hardest thing. Sometimes as people are always like, like, oh, like maybe they'll just like get over it or it's not a big deal. I think, especially as women, like you can talk yourself in circles so much about just like, it's not a big deal. And 100% just like say it and get it. Like there's been so many times where it's like, something with one of my employees or even with a friend that you're like, oh, did they say that? Did they mean it like that? Especially like if it's like a text message or an email, and
totally.
Just, and just like confront it and be like, hey, like, and it's always something that you realize like you just didn't know their whole story and it's super small and then it's done and it's over with. So I 100% believe in like, like just being like, hey, don't be like, say it in a respectful way, being like, hey, I just want to talk about this thing that happened yesterday, or can we just clarify this?
In a timely manner.
Yeah, and just like, be respectful of that person's time. Like I've 100% like we like work out in the Northrop King building. So our new like thing is we go to Dogwood Coffee. Like, so, sorry, everybody that goes to Dogwood now over in Northeast. And I was like, oh, there's Larissa having a conversation with somebody again. But, just like, we like book out time and we're like, hey, I just want to talk about this and like get it over, not like get over with, but kind of get it over with, because or else like you could just fester on it for so long. So
and in efforts of getting shit done, you have to confront it and move along, right? I think my biggest everyone knows my mantra is be authentic and be blunt, right? This is why we're here. But I think for me that comes from this place of if you don't say something, nothing will change. And I am a big believer in there. If you want change in a specific area, you have to say it and you have to put it out there. And the more direct I've been in situations, the more that has come back to me professionally, in career, in life with my family. Anytime I'm able to actually explain what I truly mean and what I want and am looking for, that then usually comes back. And more surprisingly than not, people are like, that can happen. That's something that I've festered on or like built this like anxious bubble, not of feelings around, usually can be completely solved by just bringing it up and being direct about it. So that's my biggest thing, is stand up and say something in any scenario. And yeah, career wise, it's grown me leaps and bounds. I wouldn't be where I was if I just had heads down, you know, and that I'm very thankful that I had the ability to be direct and blunt, but it always came from a respectful, loving place.
No. And I think it's like one of those things too, is like, especially as like boss ladies here, it's like, it's still hard for us, I would say. Like, you know, do we have anxiety, like, you know, when you have to like voice up? But I always feel like the anxiety of like not saying something is so much greater than just like, you know, getting it over with. And I think that's like the big thing, is that it's like, oh, well, that's their personality, like they just say stuff. And it's like, just so you know, like having to be like that forward sometimes, like, you know, it's not easy, like, and that's, you know, one of those things I think people think, oh, it's easy for them, and it's like, no, it's not easy, but you just know that it's what you have to do, and it's a skill. I think it can be trained, and I think you can become more blunt. So yes. Let us help you. Where can people find you? Oh, lots of places. I mean, right here in the Twin Cities, like some of them, just my favorites are, I mean, a huge support of us for so long has been Cliche in Minneapolis. We just love them to death. You know, I Like You has been so great to us. General Store Minnetonka. Online, actually, very shortly, you'll be finding our stuff on ModCloth, which is pretty great. Congratulations. So, thank you. That's incredible. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, the best thing to do is always go to the source too, which is larissaloden.com. We have free shipping over $50, which is pretty sweet, because we believe in shopping in your sweatpants and drinking red wine if I'm in, you know, brutal honesty mode, you know. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. No, thank you. And let's continue this conversation. And if you are looking to become more blunt, find an amazing group of women who are out there doing it, because you will learn that we all have these anxious feelings, and we definitely have learned some skills that we can pass along, and happily will. So let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find us at Blunt Cuts Podcast.